This is a real story that happened in the first half of the 2000s in Moscow, Russia. We will follow the events in the order that they happened. This is my new ASMR true crime video about the Chessboard killer. There was a series of murders that began approximately in 2001 in Moscow, when on May 17th, 2001, a man called Yevgeny Bronin of 52 years old was murdered with a hammer and dumped in a park. He was found in the sewer when the body was washed out with a stream. Yevgeny and his supposed murderer were having some drinks outside in the park because Yevgeny had recently lost his beloved dog and wanted to soak his grief in vodka. But unfortunately, he passed away. The next body happened in July the same year, but this time the victim, called Andrei Konovalets, of 22 years old, the murderer failed to dump him into the collector sewer, and in his last moments, Andrei tried to run away from his new acquaintance that he met in the Pichushkin park. Andrei was a lot more fragile man than his murderer, so the murderer dragged him to the sewer, but Andrei had enough strength to raise an alarm, and he was heard by some bypassers who came running to the scene. The killer threw Andrei into the sewer and ran for it. And so next, after the murder of Andrei, who died unfortunately because of a severe trauma, next 6 months the murderer made no appearance. In the next times he committed 10 more murders by the beginning of 2002. By that time he changed his scheme of killing. He started luring his victims into nearby houses, probably because it was very cold in winter. But he used the same excuse to sit beside his victims and for them to trust him. They were having some drinks, and when his victim got drunk, he threw them off a rooftop and died on the scene. But it was a clever move for the killer to make, this way. The police never thought that those were murders. They were considered to be accidental deaths. His 13th murder, the killer committed again in the same park on January 2019. The same scheme again, drinking, and then using a hammer and throwing his victims into the sewer. His next victims were 47-year-old man Yuri Chumakov and 20-year-old Maria Vericheva, who was pregnant at the time. The woman didn't drink with him. The maniac lured her into the park under a false pretense of wanting to help her take her heavy bags to her home. But this time, the victim made it out of the sewer. She somehow climbed up from there, and some bypassers saw her and called an ambulance. That case was actually very fortunate, if we can say so, because Maria then kept her pregnancy intact and gave birth to a girl several months later. On March 7th, 2002, the maniac made his next move to a disabled man, Alexei Fedorov, who lived with his mother and sister in the neighboring house from the killer. But his body was not recovered, as most of them were not, until late year 2005. When they were washed out of the sewers and discovered. Until that time, late 2005, the police didn't even suspect a serial killer active in that Pichushkin park. After the event with the pregnant woman, the killer decided not to leave any chance to his victims, and he started always using a hammer to dispose of bodies instead of people who could still be alive. Then he acquired a special pen that had a sharp blade inside it and could shoot the blade. And he started killing people using that pen blade. He mostly kept killing alcoholics who were drinking in the streets, disabled, lonely disabled people, and some homeless men who lived in that park. So, in total, she was going on a date with her co-worker called Alexander Pichushkin. She even left her son a note with the phone number of that man. So when she went missing, her son reported it and informed the police about the suspect. 2 days later, Alexander Pichushkin was arrested. There were multiple clues against him. There were CCTV footage near a subway station. She had a hammer with him, and also he was recognized by some people who survived his attempted attacks. A few men to whom he suggested some drinks refused them, and Pichushkin got really angry about that, and so the men were quite frightened of him and they recalled him. And also some survivors of his attacks, though their memory was faltered by the traumas that they got from his hammer, but still they recognized him, and so the police got the killer. So, what can we say about Alexander Pichushkin? He was an intelligent man. He was a professional chess player. He even loved his chess to the point where he even made a chessboard, a scheme for his murders. Basically, his scheme was to kill a person and mark that person on his chessboard. As you know, there are 64 tiles on a chessboard, and so he meant to kill 64 people. He killed his first victim when he was just 18 years old. It was his classmate from a college. Pichushkin studied to be a carpenter, which wasn't like a prestigious profession at all. It was even considered to be like not a very good profession. He had low self-esteem. He had troubles with his speech because when he was a child he got a cerebral trauma. He fell off a swing, got a trauma, then his speech got affected, and he had to go and study in a special school, boarding school for kids with like altered intellectual capability. So he killed his first victim in college. It was his classmate named Mikhail Odichuk. Alexander strangled his victim and threw the body into a sewer. Mikhail's body was never recovered. But after that killing, Pichushkin got extremely excited. He talked about it wanted to outnumber Chikatilo, as evil as it sounds. He was getting ready to commit his crimes. He was training and devising a strategy. So that's where his chessboard strategy came about. He even said that if he fulfilled his so-called mission to fill in 64 tiles on a chessboard, he would buy himself a checkboard, an international checkboard with 100 tiles, and start filling it. So the trials continued for a few months, and Pichushkin never tried to hide the facts of his killings. Indeed, he was proud of them. He was talking about them like, oh, I knew I was gonna get sentenced when those policemen were interrogating me about 12 bodies, and they just wouldn't listen to me that I had 60, not just 12. And he also expressed his intentions of continuing his horrific plan when he spoke to some TV journalists and pronounced a threat. "You wait, I will return to the park. My hand remembers the hammer very well." So he's a typical psychopath. Possibly that was affected by his trauma, but I assume he must have had some prior indications. Psychopathy doesn't just happen on the spot all of a sudden. It must have been there before the trauma. So, in October 2007, Pichushkin was sentenced to a life imprisonment. He was accused of 52 crimes, 49 murders and 3 attempted murders. He even tried to appeal to the court to make his sentence shorter, lower it from a life imprisonment to 25 years in prison. But of course it was rejected, because that's just mad to release a person like that. So Pichushkin stays in prison to this day, and rightly so, because when he was interviewed in prison, he said, "If they let me out right now, first thing I would do is I would kill a few people just to de-stress a bit and drink some vodka, and then we'll see." So I believe you can see this is a frightening case, because the man is a psychopath. He has no remorse, no empathy, and he has a strong desire to kill people. The only thing keeping him alive is the moratorium for death penalty that was announced in Russia at the beginning of the 1990s. So we don't have a death penalty here, just life imprisonments, but at least that man will never get out, and that should be some comfort. So, thank you for listening to this story. I hope it hasn't frightened you, and I hope it's been interesting to listen to. I think that man is remarkable not only by the degree of his madness, but also his chessboard strategy. But all in all, this is a frightening case, and well, I hope you meant to listen to something like that, not just some light case. Okay, so please let me know if this case was good enough for a true crime video, and leave any kind of feedback, anything at all, anything you would like to suggest, any criticisms, anything at all. And well,